What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today I want to talk about the keyword Trample in Magic the Gathering. Now, if a creature has Trample, it has a very unique ability that allows its damage to carry over to the enemy player, even when it is blocked. Now, to understand how that works, when a creature does not have Trample, if it attacks and it is blocked, regardless of how big the creature is blocking it, no damage carries over to the enemy player. So if you're attacking with a 6/6 vanilla, say a Visodrix, terrible card, don't play this. But if you were to attack with it, and they were to block with a 1/1, for example, your Visodrix would not deal 6 damage to your opponent. It would in fact deal 6 damage just to that 1/1, kill that 1/1 quite comfortably, and that's it. That's all that would happen in combat. Now, if you do have the ability Trample, however, like the example here, the Colossal Dreadmaw, you would then instead be able to assign 1 damage to the 1/1 token, or 1/1 creature, whatever it may be, and then 5 damage, so the remainder will travel on and strike the enemy player's life total. So if they were to block it with a 2/3, for example, what would end up happening, or 3/3 for the sake of simple math, 6 damage would be, or 6 total damage would be applied. 3 would be applied to the 3/3 blocking it. 3 more would go on to the enemy's life total, and as a result, they would lose 3 life. Now, the way that is determined is by the amount of damage that's assigned to the creature versus the player is determined by the toughness of the creature that's blocking. Enough damage to kill that creature needs to be applied first, and then the remainder can move on to the player. Now, there's a lot of unique instances and little things that can result. Also, a creature can be blocked by multiple creatures. So if I attack with a Colossal Dreadmaw, and that Colossal Dreadmaw is blocked by 3 2/2s, for example, all of those 2/2s would die in that combat because I would be able to apply 2 damage to each of them, knocking them out. However, no damage will carry on into the opponent. That said, if they were blocked by 3 1/1s, I'd be able to apply 1 damage to each of them, and then 3 more would travel onto the enemy player, etc., etc. So the combat math gets interesting the moment Trample is involved. And the primary benefit is that you can't do what's referred to as chump blocking oftentimes. And a chump block is when a small creature is basically sacrificed to a much larger attacker. Not truly sacrificed in the way that, not in MTG terms, but you put a small creature in front of a big creature so that big creature doesn't hit your life total. It's that simple. So if you have a lot of little 1/1s lying around, you can just each turn put a 1/1 in front of a 6/6 or a 10/10 even if it doesn't have Trample, and that's going to prevent the damage coming through. So Trample is very, very important on large creatures. There is also a very unique interaction with another keyword called Death Touch. Death Touch is a keyword that says if this creature deals damage to another creature, it doesn't have to be combat damage, any damage whatsoever, then that other creature dies, regardless of how big it is. Just a single point of damage is enough to kill any creature on the board. What happens there is Trample checks how much damage do I need to apply to this creature before carrying the rest over. If Death Touch is in play, that damage is 1. So if I have a Colossal Dreadmaw at 6/6, if I were to somehow give Colossal Dreadmaw Death Touch by a spell or a piece of equipment or an aura, if I were to give Colossal Dreadmaw Death Touch and it attacks, my opponent could block with a 10/10. And what would happen is 1 damage would be applied to that 10/10. That's enough to kill it. The remaining 5 carries on into the player. So that's something that's very important to keep in mind. Now, in that scenario, our Colossal Dreadmaw does die in that combat because the blocker deals damage back to the attacker equal to its power. So a 10/10 blocking a 6/6, the 10/10 wins effectively, and the 6/6 does die. But in the case of Death Touch, you do get to sneak that extra damage in. So that's a very interesting scenario that you see. At the end of the day, Trample is very, very important on large creatures. Big creatures that do not have Trample suffer from the chump block problem. If they do have Trample, however, they circumvent that in a really nice way. So your opponent has to have more resources on board to prevent the damage and be able to soak up those attackers. So that goes a long way. So that's Trample in a nutshell. There are many effects that can minimize or can manipulate that you can use to modify it. You can give Trample through a lot of different equipments or auras that are out there. So, and sometimes creatures can get Trample in unique scenarios. Also, there is one detail that I want to cover when it comes to Trample. Technically, You, the attacking player, get to decide how the damage is spaced, as long as there's enough damage on each of the creatures to kill them. The reason that I specify that is because of a card that makes that relevant. Now, if you're playing on MTG Arena or MTGO, most of the time what it'll do is simply assign enough damage to kill the creature and the rest will move on. It'll do it automatically because that is 99.9% of the time exactly what you want to do. There are some examples, however, such as Agar the Freezing Flame. This card says that whenever a creature an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, if a giant wizard or spell you control dealt that damage to this turn, you draw a card. So if I'm attacking with a giant that has Trample, and my opponent chooses to chump block it, or block it with a smaller creature, so a 1/1 gets in front of my 6/6 trampling giant that I'm attacking my opponent with, I can choose to deal 2 damage to the 1/1 blocking it and only deal 4 damage to my opponent's life total. And that will trigger Agar and allow me to draw a card. So there are some situations where excess damage is relevant. In those situations, you can willfully choose to assign excess damage with your tramplers. It's a rare scenario. It doesn't come up very often, but it's out there, and that's something to be aware of. So if you enjoyed this video, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it very, very much. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe to all the YouTube things. I would appreciate it very, very much. And if you want to see other how-to videos like this that go into different magical mechanics or different aspects of the game, please leave those in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to know what you want to hear about, because those are the videos I want to be making. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.